And we're live.
All right. Here we are. We are a day late and a couple of dollars short because it is Christmas season.
For sure.
We have spent everything that we have. So, sorry about yesterday. That was all on me. Double book, triple book, and we have a big event, coffee house coming up.
We do have a big event coming up.
If you're not a part of the Word Community Church in Northport, Alabama, we do an event. Matt, tell us about that event, because we've been doing it. How many years have we been doing Christmas coffee house?
How many years have we been doing it? I feel like at least 8, maybe? At least 8. I would describe Coffee House as an opportunity for you to invite a friend to church in a, non-churchy way. I mean, who wants to turn down free breakfast?
It is. It is absolutely. So, if you're not familiar with Coffee House, what we're doing this week is we have, how many tables are in there?
44.
44 tables set up, and actually, as we're having this podcast, there's a group of ladies known as Morning Manna. They are decorating it. It's going to look amazing. But we have 44 tables, and for the past few weeks, we've been talking about it at our church, and the goal is to take a ticket.
Sure.
And to invite a non-church person.
Yeah, I think it's the easiest. Well, and, statistically speaking, they say that most people don't come to church because they don't get invited. And so we said, how can we make your life easier to invite a friend who maybe has been on the fence about church and maybe hasn't come in a while, and you just go, hey, come eat. Instead of going, hey, come to church with me, it's, hey, come, let's go get some breakfast.
So I had a conversation with a guy yesterday, and it was funny because his coworker was like, man, you didn't invite me. And I heard him go, I'm not inviting church people. We don't want church people. So I love it because that verbiage has continued to ring through in the fact that I don't want you trying to steal somebody who's already in another church and happy with their church.
Correct.
I feel like, so reading all the articles about the nuns and all of this, and the not nuns as in Catholic nuns, but the ones who consider themselves no affiliation, is
N-O-N-E.
N-O-N-E.
I got you.
Not a bunch of nuns, but a bunch of nones. But at the end of the day, is the inviting of those people. Everybody down here does church, right?
Sure.
But
you say that, but even then, you go, if everybody down here does church, our church would be packed. Every church would be packed just in Tuscaloosa County.
Boy, by does church, what I mean is if you walk up to somebody in public, and they're our age,
yep,
and you say, hey, man, what church you go to? I bet they give you an answer.
Sure.
You know what I'm saying? Like, I remember at HEB in Texas.
Yep.
And it's still one of my favorite stories of my own brain. Is I was in the HEB checkout line, and I had on our church logo T-shirt.
Yep.
And the checkout person was like, hey, man, I go to that church. And I said, oh, yeah? And he said, yeah, man. And so he starts telling me about the church.
Sure.
And he starts telling me about the pastor.
Yeah.
And I'm standing there.
Yeah.
Like, he has no idea I'm the pastor. So I'm like, he's probably been to our church once.
Once or twice, yeah.
Once or twice, and so my thing is, I feel like Deep South Church, what we do is we shuffle Christians around.
Sure.
Or all the church planning is just pissed off people, because Deep South Church is where 2 or more gathered, you must split. And so
sure.
I was having this conversation this morning. We're looking for a youth pastor. Man, there's a phenomenal guy. It put me in a great mood this morning talking to him. Even though he shot me down like a hot potato, because he's got a great job.
Sure.
And I'm doing it old-fashioned college football style. I'm going to go gang somebody's youth pastor.
Sure.
I have no issue with that whatsoever.
Well, that's just life.
I'm looking for Lane Kiffin youth pastor. That's what I'm looking for.
You're no Chip Kelly?
No Chip Kelly. No, don't like Chip Kelly. I'm looking for Lane. I want a high-octane, high-powered offense.
Bill O'Brien?
He sucks. Oh, man, I am sure he's an amazing guy.
Sure.
But to go from Lane Kiffin's offense to that offense has been underwhelming to me.
Well, when he was the Texans coach, it was underwhelming for them.
Underwhelming, like, we'll use that word,
Yeah.
underwhelming.
Yeah, it was very underwhelming.
And
I mean, it made me happy, but
Yeah, because we're Cowboys fans.
Well,
As
yeah.
long as the Texans suck, we're
sure,
happy.
absolutely.
Bryce Young going to the Texans too. That
Well,
disappoints me.
They're not. Well, I guess they're close to first pick. I know it's kind of up in the air, but
I think the Brown or who is
it's
it?
not the Browns.
Who is it?
I thought Jacksonville, but now they're like all of a sudden in the hunt.
Yeah, somebody's got 3 losses. I'm trying to remember who it was.
Well, I can't imagine. I even think Indianapolis is in the hunt at like 5 wins.
Yeah, I mean, it was a team that only had 3 wins. That was not a normal. Like it wasn't Cleveland.
Sure.
You know what I'm saying? Like Cleveland's always awful, but it's the Rams.
Oh yeah, yeah.
The Rams. 'Cause they picked up Baker Mayfield, and I thought, what an odd choice. But who cares? They won 3 games, and
well, and Stafford's injured. And,
yeah. So, but I'm looking for a youth pastor that is a high octane. I want the run and gun offense in our youth ministry because we're a fast moving church.
Sure.
But within that, we were talking about how, in this neck of the woods, this area of the country, that, and you and I were talking about, you don't see a lot of church planting anymore. You don't see a lot of movement in that world anymore. Maybe it's on the down.
I think it's probably on the downside.
But it's
down slope. Not downside, down slope.
Well,
they're
I'm
less.
wondering if that doesn't play into the ones who don't come to church anymore. And when I say everybody does church, the majority of people deep south were drugged to church by their grandmother.
Sure.
They've been to the VBSs
Sure.
or the revivals and all of that. And something in there has triggered them to not like church.
Right.
Right? I don't think it's a God issue. I think it's a church issue.
Well, absolutely.
So it's triggered them not to like church. So here's my question.
Yep.
You always ask me questions. I'm going to ask you.
Okay.
And this stems off a great conversation I had this morning with the youth pastor, who shall remain nameless, because I planted a seed. He's coming, but I'm convinced God's going to lead him through our doors. He doesn't
Well, good.
think that, but I feel like I threw a really good seed out there today.
Well, I mean, it always starts with a seed, and so,
Yeah.
That's not like a bad thing.
And I didn't even fertilize it. I didn't put a whole bunch of crap around it. I was pretty straightforward.
You just went straight forward and said,
But he's an amazing guy. I love listening to his story. But all of that to say, here's my question. So we're all in a downward spiral in the church world. So they say, right?
Yep.
Denominations for sure.
Sure.
Trending downward. If we're in a downward spiral, so the easiest time of the year, it's why we do coffee house.
Yep.
Is people come at Christmas.
Yep.
People come at Easter. Even the ones who don't like church, it's not that they don't believe in God or Jesus. They just don't like the churchy mess. But so, what can churches do to get those who don't like church to come back into the door? Because like I said, I don't believe it's a God thing or a Jesus thing. I think it's I don't like church. So what can churches do to get people back in the door? Especially after COVID.
I think as a church, if we can set up, I think it's our duty as the staff of the church to set up an environment that's conducive to invitation.
What does that mean?
I'm saying, we have to, I think it takes, it's part staff, part congregation, and going, as a congregation, how does the staff set you up to make this a place that you want to invite your friend? A place that you go, I have a neighbor who's, going through pregnancy or going through whatever. How can I get them to church? And we know to get people to church, it takes an invite.
Right.
And so how do we get to a point where we can empower our congregation to invite even if they feel like they're going to get shot down? Because I think that's the hardest part, is you go, hey, would you come to church with me? And they're like, well, and you get shot down. And so you go in a second time and you're like, hey, can you go to church with me? But I don't know. It's just...
So you think creating an environment that not so much that the people they invite want to go to, but creating an environment that you want your friends to go to.
Right.
I like that. That's a little bit of a difference because we've always spent a lot of time saying, I remember old youth pastoring, we want to have pizza night.
Sure.
Because you create an environment that the people not in church want to go to.
Right.
But I've been in a lot of churches.
Well, I
where
think it's
wouldn't
more.
I wouldn't have invited you to a couple of my churches back in the day. Well, I mean, it's,
Sure.
you know, what am I? You walk in, you got to dress up. It's very starchy, very, you
Yeah.
know. It's like you want to. It's like you eat a sleeve of crackers with no water.
Oh gosh, yeah.
And so
It just takes a while to chew through.
So it's kind of
Well-
one of those things that I didn't really want to invite my friends because it was just a checkbox thing I had to do.
Right.
Anyway.
Well, and I think it's less. I think the environment we have to create is an environment where the congregation is proud to invite their friends, regardless of if they get shut down. And so I go, how do you create that environment? I think you got to be very welcoming at the door, and you got to be on point. Like when someone from the congregation invites somebody and they show up, we have to be on point and going, hey, this is what Sunday morning looks like. You know, we'd love to have you. We want you to. Here's kids. Here's the bathroom. Hey, do you want some coffee? Here's a donut. Like, you know, all of those little things just to get them to the seat. And I think once they're in the seat, the Spirit takes over.
So what do you say to the people that are like, "Oh, you're just bringing the world into it. You just like you shouldn't have food, no coffee.
Well,
it should just be, you know."
Shouldn't you bring the world into church? Am I wrong in that? I feel like that's theologically sound. No?
I don't know. I'm staring at you. I'm waiting on you to finish that. Like what are you talking about?
Isn't who we want in church the world?
Correct. Church is simple. It's just
Okay.
not easy.
So I just go, if you want the world in church,
You got to go out and reach the world.
invite the world.
Well, it's
like-
you're right. As far as theological, going to the
I feel
world
like that's pretty theologically sound, and I feel like we're supposed to go out.
and
and,
bring the world,
and
people
so,
in the world in. Correct.
You know, how do we empower our congregation to go out?
But the Pharisee
And in
mentality would say you don't need all the food, you don't need the event. Like there are people who
Well, sure.
really despise what we're going to do this Sunday
Sure.
because they believe it's a desecration to the whatevers because we're going to have food. We're still going to have a message and an awesome story and worship music and all the things that a church service is supposed to have. We're just doing it different. So what do you say to the ones who are like, you shouldn't have the donuts and you shouldn't have
Yeah, because Jesus didn't feed the 5,000 plus,
or go into places
or
and eat.
go in and
Almost every situation Jesus walked into, there was food.
yeah, I'd get.
He was at a party
Even-
in Canaan.
Yeah,
I know
well,
that gets
I even think I'm like he's at a wedding and he makes wine.
He tells the tax collector, who's in the world, by
Yeah.
the way,
Yeah,
I'm going to go eat with you today.
yeah.
So they went and ate.
You know,
Because
he
you know, fulfill
There-
their felt needs before their spiritual needs. 'Cause people don't care how much you know until they know how much you care.
well, I feel like the Pharisee mentality forgets the journey they went on.
Ooh.
You know, they forget the time that their hands were dirty. They forget that they went from milk to meat. They feel like, that's just the Pharisee mentality is, I'm here now and you're supposed to be here too. And it's true. Like, yeah, you should be. I go, when you think of a Pharisee and you take the negative out of it, what were they really great at? They really understood what the Bible was saying. They understood all the laws and the rules. They just took it too far. You know?
I like that.
I just,
I'm actually sitting here typing your comment because I'm going to post this later as your quote of the day.
Quote of the day. You're welcome.
Pharisee mentality forgets the journey they themselves went on.
Sure. I mean, nobody goes in and is like, I got it all down.
Well, if you
like-
had it all down, you wouldn't need Jesus.
Right.
I mean, that's.
Well, you
But
know.
people do forget that.
Sure.
Like there was a time I was hungry.
Yeah, absolutely.
There was a time I wasn't worthy, and somewhere along the way we let pride get in the way, and we forget the journey we were on. I made the statement the other day, and it was one of those things. I'm driving down the road. It's when me and God talk the most.
Sure.
And it was like, we look at people funny when they don't do things in worship service when they're supposed to or how they're supposed to.
Sure.
As if that's even a thing. But then God said, well, I wonder if you're not doing
I mean,
what you're supposed to be doing. Why wouldn't you be excited about worship?
I do look at people who don't clap on beat. But I appreciate that they're like
Clap.
excited but the Pharisee side of me goes, oh my gosh, just a half second earlier or later, and you're there.
So offbeat
But
clapping is
offbeat clapping.
So I could sing off key. I just don't need to clap offbeat.
Yeah, my kids talk to me about, we do things and we'll be listening to a song and they're clapping and I'm like, hey, you're offbeat, and they're like, well, how do I get on? I'm like, stay half a second back or half a second forward and try it there and just get on beat. But yeah, offbeat clapping, because I feel like if you sing off key, I can't hear you, but I can hear it clap.
Yeah.
Like I don't have the ear for music, can't do it.
Me neither.
Like I've tried, but
I can tell you bad, like if they're really off key and they're singing by themselves, but by and large, I don't know the first.
Yeah, I don't have that ear. I don't have. My pitch is probably absolutely terrible.
Well, Cassie will come up after worship or something. She'll be like, "Oh, I was this, that, and the other," and I'm like, "Nobody knows."
Yeah, I don't.
Like, I didn't hear you. Y'all sounded great. It's fine.
Yeah.
She was like, "Well, you don't understand." I was like, "Correct."
Yeah.
I'm like, I don't.
99% of the time when I'm hearing the worship team, and even if they missed a key or they missed a note or whatever they did, I go, would have never noticed unless you brought it up.
She told me. Well, and that's why I come off the stage and tell her, I'm like, you want to screw a perfectly good message? She's like, Scott, nobody noticed. I thought it was fine. I was like,
Sure.
It was awful. Like that, but you've got your own ear for your own.
Right.
Which is why I don't watch playbacks of myself.
Sure.
I had somebody that preached last week, and I was talking to them. They were at a different church, and they were like, "Oh, I watched, and I realized how many times I said a certain word." And I laughed. I said, because I've got a group of people in church that make memes, but they'll also tell me, because I'll get
Sure.
on this word, and it'll be I call it a kick word.
Sure.
So like if you get uncomfortable or you're trying to transition, it's during a prayer. Who's that comedian? He talks about how people say "Father" 10,000 times.
Oh yeah.
It's because they're nervous.
Sure.
It's because they're trying to remember what to say, but when you can't, you start ticking into a weird word.
It replaces
It is.
Yeah.
It's
Yeah.
and every now and then I'll get on a kick.
Sure.
Well, I think my life it's been a minute, but it'll be like a phrase like I said, or but you'll say it 15 times.
Sure.
But it's I told him, I said, don't ever watch yourself. The
Yeah.
playback is awful in
Sure.
your own head. Nobody else notices, but in your own head, the playback will be awful because you'll realize all the things you didn't say that you wanted to say, all the stupid things that you said, like this week. Like
I've watched both, so I guess I've gone twice, and I've watched both times.
What'd you think?
I went. It was longer than it felt. like I felt like it was like, oh my gosh, I'm going to get us out of here in like 2 minutes. And I did a disservice to the congregation. And then when I actually watched it, I hit the time I was going for.
Mm-hmm.
And then secondly, I go, man, I made some good points. And sometimes I just sound so dumb.
Well, I can tell the difference when I don't have Cassie on the front row as an anchor like this past week because
Sure.
I get so discombobulated. But she'll look at me and be like, I get that look and it'll bring me back.
Yep.
But she decided that she didn't love God enough to attend church this week. So,
Well, we were setting up for a meeting.
well, I wasn't going to tell the people watching that. I was just going to,
I mean, you can't throw First Lady under the bus now.
Yeah, see, she's probably listening right now, and she's gonna be like, "Stop."
She's like, quit talking about. That's every time, like every Wednesday I come back, Claire's like, did you guys talk about me? And I said, yeah, of course, we talk about you every time. And she goes, stop it. Quit talking about me.
It's all right. Nobody recognized Cassie this week anyway because she went back to black hair.
Oh, she changed it.
From blonde back to black. Well, it's Christmas time, so.
Said she's got to be angry.
Oh, you're dead man.
I know. She's probably watching and she's ready to throat chop me right now.
400 people coming in this week.
Well, no.
That aren't in church.
No.
In theory, if everybody hands out their ticket.
In theory, I go.
So 300 to 400. I'll use preacher numbers.
Sure.
We're gonna have almost 1,000 people in there. Right?
Well, in total, you start really. I mean,
It'll be
if you want to start breaking down numbers and including kids, you're gonna go. We're probably gonna hit that 800 mark.
Right. So 800, half of them not actively in church.
We hope.
We hope. Okay. So
That's the goal.
when we walk out of there on Sunday,
Yep.
what do you define as a success? Carry that question over to a normal week. When you get done with a Sunday, what do you define as success?
I think you define success comes very early at coffee house because you see tables full. And so it tells me that A, people were successful in their invite, and B, we did a good job in creating an environment for them to invite to. As
So
for
it's not the number of people; it's that people invited like we were.
right, I mean
I like
I feel like when we talk about coffee house, the number one goal is again for someone to invite somebody to church in a way that it doesn't feel like it's church. And then number two, I feel like it's for our teams to have a great time. Because I walk around, you see people out there and they're greeting people or they're taking them to their table and they're smiling. And inherently, people just love to serve. And so when you have a great service, you start going. And and I'm not saying a great service from stage. I'm saying when you have great service,
You're right.
people serving others, you go. That's the two wins. That'll be what I look for this weekend. People I don't recognize,
Mhm.
and then I'll look for people having a good time serving.
We're also having a kids coffee house.
Kids
What's
coffee
success
house.
in the kids world, because you came from the children's pastor world. What's success in the kids world on that day?
For me, there was a kid. So I don't know if it was 3 years ago or 4 years ago. We had two services. One service we made cookies, and one service we made snow. And
Did
there
you
was
make yellow snow?
no. Well, I guess you could have,
You could.
but we made it smelled like baking soda and shaving cream. I don't remember how we made it, but we made it. But we made snow, and there was a kid who, like, I don't know, 6 months later, was in our church and went, "Oh hey, you're the guy who made snow."
See,
And I went, okay, so there's the win for me. But I think for kids, it's just having a good time. They're going to have fun, and they're going to go, man, I want to go back to that church.
and see, that for me is success. If somebody walks out, and I've always said this, and this towards Pharisee mentality.
Sure.
But if you think about it, like longer than your own idea of what church should look like. My goal on a Sunday, an average Sunday, for somebody who's not in church that has finally walked back in, right? You've been asking this person forever.
Right.
They're probably on the lake fishing normally on Sundays. They're in a recliner drinking a beer, watching the race
Sure.
or watching football. My goal on a Sunday, and my goal for Coffee House, will be they walk out and make one of two comments. One of three comments, actually. And they're all the same gist. First comment is this: you know what? Church isn't as bad as I thought it was.
Well, that's a good one.
Like you don't have, I don't need them walking out and going, oh man, that's the best thing ever, right? That's an unrealistic expectation. But I want them to walk out and go, man, church wasn't as bad as I remember, or
Sure.
as bad as I thought it was, or okay, take that another step. I also want them to walk out and go, man, Christians aren't as bad as I thought they were, right?
Yep.
Because you always hear this, oh, they're a bunch of hypocrites, or they're a bunch of judgmental jackholes, or
There's lots
fill in
of,
whatever blank that is.
you think of Westboro,
Baptist,
and you just go,
boycotting funerals. And,
yeah.
But you get that mentality of people when they walk in. See, this is the challenge I think we face who are in full-time ministry. Most people who are not in church that walk into church are walking in and you're at a deficit.
Sure.
Because they already have an idea in their head based on
Sure.
whatever they went to before, whether it was as a teenager, as a kid, or,
Sure.
that they've got this mentality, or they've had an encounter with a Christian that was less than ideal.
Sure.
And so they're walking in there at a net deficit. So if I can get somebody to walk out and go, man, that group of people,
Yeah.
not that they're the best thing since sliced bread, but
Right.
man, they're not as bad as I could be a part of that.
Right.
Like that's what I'm looking for. And then the third thing I want people to walk out and say along the same lines is, you know what? God's not as bad as I thought he was.
Sure.
Right? Because we have this image of God.
Right.
And usually it correlates to the Christian that we've had an experience with or to the church we've had an experience with.
Right.
And my goal is for somebody to walk out and go, oh, maybe it's not as bad as I thought it was.
Right.
Whether that be church, whether that be a Christian, or whether that be God. Or maybe they had a traumatic experience in life. They lost somebody, they had a miscarriage, a friend turned their back, divorce, whatever. And they heap a lot of blame on God.
Sure.
And he's got big shoulders, but my goal is for them to walk out and say that's not as bad as I thought it was.
Yep.
Whether it's one of those three things, because if they do say that, I feel like they'll come back, which is the goal: go into the world.
Yep.
Bring them into God's house.
Yep.
And so we're going to get them in. How do we? I think for me the big question is how do we get them to come back? And the reason we do Coffee House when we do, it's like Egg the City. We don't do it on Christmas.
Right.
Because now we have an opportunity to say, hey, we got a Christmas Eve service. Because everybody likes to go to
Something.
Christmas,
Well,
Christmas church.
you go the two, our two biggest service. Obviously, our biggest service is always going to be Easter.
Yep.
Super
Bowl.
That's
Super Bowl
Super Bowl. But around the Christmas holiday is always a big one, and so you look at that and you go, and that's all we're trying to do is create an opportunity that you feel comfortable inviting your friend to.
And it's probably the most low-hanging fruit because there's not going to be some preacher up there preaching.
Sure.
Because we're about to hear an amazing story.
Yep.
And then on Christmas Eve, the brief message, But I'm actually really looking forward to Ken Hamby doing his thing on a Sunday morning. I think it'll just add a fun dynamic that you go, huh.
I think it's a little bit, church has been doing the same thing forever, that doing something a little different can bear some great fruit. I hope.
We don't want to do anything different. Jesus didn't do anything different.
Well, okay.
Which is why they nailed him to the cross.
Sure.
The funny thing to me is Jesus was a rabbi, right? He taught them when he was 12. At the end of the day, he knew Old Testament scripture. He knew Old Testament and had a lot of those same beliefs. They didn't differ a lot on biblical belief. They nailed him to the tree because of style. They didn't like the way he did it.
Well, yeah.
There's a control issue too, because he had a huge following, and they hated that. And he did it different. Like, you weren't supposed to eat with tax collectors.
Right. You were supposed to stay in your nice holy huddles and keep it that way. And Jesus kind of went and flipped tables and changed it up and went, hey, just like the Jews were supposed to go.
I found that statement. This is one of mine. I get to say this because I'm going to get in trouble by my wife for this snarky comment, but I've always heard that, just came in and flipped tables, like don't sell T-shirts at church, the money changers. They don't understand that, the concept or the context of that.
People were getting ripped off.
They were getting ripped off.
It wasn't the shirt that was the issue.
And it was by the religious people.
Yes.
He flipped tables on the religious people, but they're always like, you got to come in and flip tables because you're bringing the world. And I'm like, no, he flipped tables all the time on the Pharisees.
Yes.
Their mentality which kept people from offering their sacrifice and worshiping God.
Right.
Because they were ripping them off and overcharging and all of that. They were a stumbling block, which is Pharisee mentality, is you can't. And I'm like, shut up.
Yeah.
But that's where Jesus flipped the tables, and they don't realize, most Pharisee mentality people don't realize Jesus would have flipped the tables at most churches today.
Oh, for sure.
He'd be like, what are y'all doing? You're creating barriers to eternity as opposed to doorways.
See, there's a quote.
There's my quote.
There's your quote.
Quit creating barriers.
Start knocking doorways.
Yeah, every now and then I get one.
You get one.
I'm done with my questions, other than I have one final question. How sad were you when the U.S. men's team lost the soccer match?
Did you
really expect them to win, though?
Being that we were like we were one touch away from scoring the first goal within 2 minutes. I think it was 2.5 minutes. Yeah, I was a little disappointed. I played defense growing up, and so watching them give up those 3 goals, and I'm just looking at the screen like, you guys, it's just, in football, it's just missed assignments. That's all it was. Yeah. They just missed 3 assignments, and game would have been different.
And the thing about soccer that I find odd is, like, watching the Iran game is then the commentators were talking about, not that I know what's going on, but they were talking about how Iran's game plan was to tie.
Sure.
So it's just keep them from scoring at all costs. Not that you don't, that's not everybody's goal, but their goal wasn't to play offense, it was
Right.
to play total defense. But when you scored, it changed the dynamics of the whole game. So
It
if
has
the
to.
U.S. had scored in that first 2 minutes, I feel like
I,
it would have shifted.
I think it shifted because they scored in the eighth minute was their first goal, and it was just a guy again. You watch the game, and it was just he was trailing the guy, and he just didn't keep up. It's like, he was watching the ball, not his man, and he went. It's just so like as a defender, it's really frustrating when that happens because if you're on your assignment and you look back and that guy's wide open, and you're just it's a frustrating one to watch for me. But yeah,
I hated to see them lose. I mostly just wanted them to beat Iran.
sure.
Because if we can't bomb them, we can at least beat them inside. That's my thought.
We can scrub their logos off their flag and really upset people.
Apparently.
Yeah.
I'm done with my questions, really.
It was a disappointing finish, but we were the second youngest team in the World Cup, so that gives me hope. And the next World Cup's in North America, so
I feel like soccer's up and coming. I feel like they got a lot of play.
anytime you have the men's team do well, you see youth soccer take off.
Yeah.
The women's team can do well, and it does okay, but when the men's team does well, it really changes the dynamic of soccer in the U.S.
Okay, so I do have one more question.
Okay.
And I know you don't like talking politics.
Are you talking about the latest news?
Yes, the latest
Oh, man.
news, but it's from a Christian circle.
Sure.
Kirk Cameron, you familiar with him? I know you're a
Oh,
little
yeah.
young to be watching
Oh, yeah.
Growing Pains.
Well, for me, he would have been in Fireproof.
Fireproof, okay.
Yep.
So I grew up where he was in his sitcom days.
Yep.
And it was a show called Growing Pains. Anyway, all of that to say, child star,
Yep.
didn't really make it in the Hollywood world as he is the child star curse,
Sure.
Got kind of pigeonholed into that. But then all of a sudden he finds Christ and he makes this huge splash in the Christian entertainment industry.
Oh, yeah.
And Fireproof was his big, and now he's probably, if I were to say one of the leading voices in the Christian world, he would
Sure.
have to be one of those, because now he's an author, a teacher, all of this, but he's still got that name recognition of a Hollywood star, right? So he wrote a book.
Yep.
He wrote a kid's book.
Okay.
So, when they have like story time, we do it with our daycare here. You go over there and you read with them.
Yep. Sometimes.
Story hour.
Sure.
Is what I think he called it. Public libraries, they do still exist. I was kind of shocked
They do.
many are still open. I remember going and reading the newspaper. They were on these big wooden dowels.
I remember being able to rent like DVDs and VHSs from there. You could get them for free from the library.
Well, we even had a church library that you had to check books out. And
Sure.
the Dewey Decimal System and all that mess. But I just assume, libraries are a bygone thing. But apparently they have story hour. And these, where kids can come in and somebody reads to them. Well, Kirk Cameron has written this book. And even if you take it out of the Christian circles, he's a big name.
Yeah, absolutely.
He's at least a B name in the world today. People our age still remember him. Young people may not know who he is, but he's a big name. He wants to go in and have a story hour with his book. It's a Christian kids book.
Sure.
He was told by over 50 public libraries that they didn't allow that kind of stuff in there. Okay? But of those 50-something libraries, they allowed drag queen story hour.
Well, yeah.
Do you feel like that Christianity is now being discriminated against? Because we don't talk about that. Like you talk about anti-Semitism, right? That we understand that Jews get discriminated against, Holocaust, all of that. Awful, awful, awful. There is that, but we recognize that.
Sure.
Everybody recognizes that. Even if you're not in the Christian world,
Sure.
you recognize anti-Semitism, right? Does anybody view telling Christianity no as discrimination? Because you can have a drag queen.
I feel like
you can't have Kirk Cameron.
I feel like that's two different questions.
Yeah, I feel like it's the same.
So
answer both questions. Do you feel like Christianity is now being discriminated against?
I would say it's
or is it even a discriminatory thing?
Yeah, see, that's where I think it's a different question. Do I feel like Christianity is getting discriminated against? It's probably a very small minority because if I go, there's 50 public libraries who said no. I feel like I could call the Tuscaloosa Public Library and they'd say, "Oh heck yeah, come on."
Yeah, let's do this,
But so I go. It's probably in the minority, but has it grown? Sure. As far as would we label it as discrimination? I doubt it. Not from a mainstream perspective. I doubt we would.
So there's a restaurant, also on mainstream news.
Sure.
There's a restaurant. It's on Daily Mail because I read the British news to find out what's going on in America. I feel like it's more unbiased.
It probably is.
It is. They don't, but I have to read a lot of crap about kings and queens and
Sure.
princes and princesses. But there is a restaurant, a big name restaurant. Like, it's not Guy Ferraris, but it's
Right.
something like that, right? That a Christian group had reserved, like we would. Like,
Sure.
we're going to Pastors here in a
Sure.
couple weeks. So we reserve their banquet room where we
Yep.
reserve a bunch of tables. Once this restaurant found out that they were a Christian organization, they would not allow them to meet in the restaurant because of that.
Well,
Do
I
you
mean,
feel like that's discriminatory?
I feel like it's poor business practice.
That's stupid business practice.
But-
I'm turning down
You know,
25 people
but
paying
as-
for food.
As a business, it's a business's decision. They get to make a decision. So
So
it's hard for me to go.
if
That's
that restaurant
discrimination.
had turned down 25 Jews because they were Jewish,
Oh, sure, you'd hear a lot more about
that'd be
it.
discriminatory.
Sure.
Okay. So
Yeah,
if,
I get where you're leading me.
right. So
But
if you
again, as a-
turned down 25 Democrats,
Well, sure.
that would be discriminatory based on their political beliefs.
Well, I just turned them down because
They're not going to tip you well. What?
sure.
Like, but
Yeah.
it's a discriminatory.
Well, but,
you're turning somebody down based on their beliefs.
Yeah.
By definition, that's discriminatory.
Yep.
So, if the libraries are turning down based on Kirk Cameron's Christian beliefs,
Yep.
if this restaurant is turning people away based on their Christian beliefs, and only because of their Christian beliefs, and he said it.
Sure.
There is the business side of it that says, yeah, you can do what you want, right?
It's your business, and
It's
if
your
you want to
business.
make poor business decisions, you're welcome to.
But
It's the perks of being in America.
again, if you turn that same group away based on a different belief system,
Sure.
if you turn down 25 Islamists,
Sure.
you would be slammed.
Sure.
Islamophobia.
Well, yeah. Well, I mean, you think about the Colorado baker instantly,
Sure.
but you go. Discrimination has become this one-way street, and you just go, and it's discrimination based on that person's beliefs. So there's no more like middle ground anymore.
So do you feel like Christianity in America is starting to see discrimination?
I think it's very minority. Well, and we live in a bubble, like you've said.
We do live in
And so do I personally see it? No. It's kind of like schools going, they're taking God out of schools, but I'm like, that's not Tuscaloosa County schools. That's, I just go, that's New York or California, or it's far away. And so, yeah, do I think when Christianity is getting discriminated on, statistically speaking, you can see it. And you go, it's starting to fail. Churches are actively closing doors more often, and so you go, as a church, we haven't done enough, and B, you see so many people walking away. Again, just as a church, we're just not doing enough. Big C Church is not doing enough.
Not at all. And I think we've lived in this bubble of saying we got to go along to get along. And you know me. This
Sure.
is where I'll get on a soapbox. I'm not going to. I'm going to watch myself. I'm not going to get on a soapbox. But I think the Big C Church in America has told their congregation, you don't need to be controversial. You need to be quiet. You need to be like, if people see you as controversial, it'll be like you're going to marginalize people who would walk into your church. But in that, so I get the point.
Sure.
Whether I agree with that point or not, I
Yeah.
get the point. But within that point, we've gotten so quiet that we no longer stand up for
Sure.
our true beliefs, right? Like,
Well,
let there be a drag queen story hour in my kid's school and see if I don't go absolutely ballistic, right? You know what I'm
Yeah.
saying? Like, that's me personally.
Yeah.
I'm not ballistic because I hate that person as a person. I'm ballistic because it flies in the face of
Right.
your most basic belief in Christianity. I don't feel like school's a place to project a woke agenda, right?
Sure.
No different than they're not going to let me go in there and preach a sermon.
Sure.
Like, I get it. It's maybe, and you made the great statement. It's not necessarily the school's job, which I love our schools here in Tuscaloosa because I do feel like that they find that balance. But
I do too.
in the you know, you go to California and they got drag story hour and they got satanic Christian or satanic clubs after school, but they don't allow Christian clubs after
Sure.
school. So to me, I'm wondering if America's not sliding towards discrimination against Christianity because at some point we're
Well-
going to be persecuted again.
Well, and
But that's where the church has grown the most.
I go, that's kind of your hope at the same time.
It is. It
And
is.
so
I
you
mean,
go.
We exploded the most in times of persecution.
Sure.
And Jesus never once said, "Oh, it's going to be easy."
Sure.
He said, "You will be persecuted.
Sure.
If they hate me, they're going to hate you."
Well, I think we've all just come full circle and going,
We're
it's,
spoiled.
yes, that is what I'm going for. That's a very simple way to say it.
Spoiled Christianity.
Spoiled.
It's going to be the name of a sermon.
Spoiled Christian. I can hear it now.
We're like a bunch of crybabies in the corner. Oh my gosh!
Well,
Stand
sure.
up and do
Yeah.
your thing. You know.
Well, and I think the church has gotten really great at yelling at the big things, and they don't care. Well, they
screaming at the darkness.
they project that these are the big issues, and really they're not.
What's the biggest issue for you?
For me,
If you said there was one issue that is just a huge
Like,
thing
this
that
is-
you just go,
this is the hill I'm gonna die on.
so I'm going to plant my flag on this and take it to the map.
Man, I don't necessarily know if I have one.
It would actually shock me if you did. I've known you a long time, and you would make a great governor.
I think if I was, it would probably be in the church. But I feel like churches do a great job of yelling about like abortion, but we don't do anything to help adoption. And that really frustrates me. And I could just go, and I think you and I probably have different opinions on how to combat abortion. And I don't think it's taking funding away from Planned Parenthood. I think it's offering a better alternative. And I think that comes with dollars behind it. And I think the church doesn't do enough to promote foster care, to promote adoption, to promote those better alternatives for people.
I like that thought. Because if we had avenues to point people to and we foster care and
Absolutely.
put our money behind it, it's a
Yep.
dream center, ultimately.
100%.
It's
it's-
saying we're going to support you because the number one reason young ladies have an abortion is they feel like that they have no other option or
Right.
alternative and they don't feel like they can care for their child.
Like, imagine a couple who has struggled with infertility coming to a church and us going, "We love you so much, we're going to pay 90% of your adoption."
Wow.
Like, you got to put some skin in the game, but we believe you're going to be such great parents that we want to help you help somebody else.
Wow.
You
Now,
know?
what would it look like even a step further if you had young ladies in your church?
Oh, gosh.
And this is the weird
Yeah,
thing, right?
it's a weird one.
Because there will be a Pharisee
It's
that
a weird
says,
one.
You say you're promoting teenage sex, you know, and I'm gonna have to.
It's
stop
not.
them.
It's not promoting. It's.
It's saying you made a mistake,
Uh,
and we're going to.
I get trouble
not
with that
agree with
too.
the mistake. However, rather than compound a bigger mistake on it,
Yeah.
we're going to be the place that you can come to, and we're going to offer an alternative. So if you don't feel like you can
We're gonna.
provide for your child, I've got an amazing couple over here that can't have a child.
Absolutely.
It's
Think
like-
how crazy that would be.
Yeah, it's like CB and Arlie Wilmore.
You'd be reaching the lost. You'd be helping people in your congregation, and you're creating a Christian home and a positive environment. And I just go talk about Talk about changing the world one kid at a time.
That would be amazing. 'Cause, like, my mom couldn't have kids.
Yep.
And they had to go through the state system, and by the grace of God, I got adopted. But how awesome would it be to take that couple and pair them with a girl who's like, I don't want to have an abortion, but I see no other option. Well, here's an option. We'll pay for your medical bills.
Yeah, absolutely.
And we'll help you through
Do
the
whatever we need
whole
to do.
thing. And then when you have the baby, we're going to give it to a couple who would give anything
Yeah.
to have a child. But the state system is so convoluted, dude.
Yep.
There's so much red tape.
Claire and I looked into adoption, and just the sheer cost. And we were always surprised at going. It was the sheer cost, and at our last church, we had an adoption agency in the church.
In the church, yeah.
And so we looked at it through them, and it was like, one of you can have a full-time job, and one of you could have a part-time job. And we were like, I don't know how we make ends meet and do that.
Yeah, especially in today's world.
And I just go, and it has always bugged me that I go, why wouldn't we, instead of yelling at the darkness, like I said, or like you have said, why wouldn't we put our money where our mouth is and say, hey, we believe in it so much that we're going to create alternatives for you. That's the way I think about it. I guess that would be the hill I would die on.
That would be the hill you would die on.
I don't think the church does enough. I think the church does a great job taking one step towards fighting abortion. I feel like there's better alternatives into combating it.
I agree. I love that.
So that would be me.
And I've talked a whole lot. Talking about the new coffin mug, I want to get my wife to say.
I'm sure she wants you to talk about it.
Yeah, I'm sure she does. My wife was just smacking her on the butt.
Physical touch, yeah. All right, so I have what I call rapid fire.
Rapid fire.
Rapid fire. I have a few questions here,
Gotcha.
and
Do you need to rapid fire the answers?
Yes.
I got 13 minutes.
Within, this is
How long is
about
each answer? Give
about-
me a guide.
about a minute each answer.
Okay.
All right, some of them are going to be shorter. Some of them are going to be longer.
Okay.
So,
And
all
I
right.
talk in circles. Go
and,
ahead.
and you talk in circles. First question: favorite Christmas song? Go.
My favorite Christmas song.
Gotta go.
Rocking Around the Christmas Tree.
Yeah, you got to be a little faster.
I
I'm
don't
just saying.
like Christmas
Well,
songs typically.
I know,
so
that's why-
I had to think.
That's literally why I
George
asked it.
Strait Christmas. I love that. There you go.
Go-to Bible verse.
Oh, Revelation 12:11. And they defeated the enemy by the blood of the Lamb and the power of your story.
Best midnight snack.
Fruity Pebbles. Cereal of any kind. Dude, I will get up in the middle of the night. No, I'm going to go a little longer than that. I will get up, and I was talking about this yesterday. We were discussing food. And because my wife brought me dehydrated okra last night. Because she went, a great friend of ours gives us pecans.
Yep.
And I grew up in Etowah County. We had huge pecan trees, and I miss fresh pecans. And so he gives us a big sack of pecans every day.
Yep.
And we take them to this fruit stand place over there across from Buddy's.
Downtown Northport.
Downtown Northport. And they crack your pecans. They have a machine that cracks them, and then from there you can just kind of peel them all apart. And so I always forget about this place.
Yep.
But every time I walk in there, I love it because it's all it's like being at a farmer's market.
Sure.
It's all the mom and poppy stuff. And somebody makes, it's like you take okra, put them on a dehydrator, but they season them with whatever. And I love those.
Really?
And so she brings them into the office last night, and a couple of my friends are sitting in there as well. And she brings them in, and I'm like, you want to try one? And they're like, no, ooh, gross, because it's okra, right? And it's dehydrated okra, so in theory, it should not taste good. But they ate them, and we ate pretty much the whole bag. All three of us, they were like, these are really good.
Dehydrated okra does not sound
It's
appealing,
amazing.
but
Here's
I get
why
it.
I like them. To get back to your midnight snack question, like I say, I'll talk in a circle. To get back to your midnight, I am a texture guy when it comes to food.
Sure.
And I like crunch. I'm not a big sweets eater, but I'll sit down and eat a whole bag of chips.
Yep.
It's because of the crunch. And so when I think of a midnight snack, I love cereal because when you eat it, I don't like soggy cereal. I don't like getting to the bottom of the bowl. But my problem is I keep the box of cereal beside me because as it gets soggier as you're going down, I pour
You refill.
in it
Yep.
so you can maintain the crunch to the end of the milk. It's very I have
Science.
serious
It's a
mental issues.
it's a very scientific
It's very
process. I'm
scientific,
sure.
how to eat a bowl of cereal.
Yeah.
There is a method to it, and if you don't do the method, you wind
Yep.
up with soggy, nasty cereal.
Do you ever-
add as you go?
Do you ever feel like you could just pour less milk?
No, absolutely not, because you can't have dry cereal. There's a
Do you,
scientific balance.
do you pour your milk or your cereal first?
Oh, absolutely. Pour the cereal first
Okay.
because there's a science to how. One, you don't want it to float over the top,
Sure.
but you want it to the top because you get the top crunch. And then, like
Yep.
I said, as you continue to eat, you feel a new crunch to soak up the milk. It's very
I
scientific.
gotcha.
And I'm personally Fruity Pebbles with the Lucky Charms marshmallows in it. It's in the green bag. It'll change your life forever.
All right. Are you a sock shoe or sock shoe?
I put both socks on, then shoes.
Good. I was hoping you would say
Yeah,
that because I feel like only psychopaths put sock shoe.
Sock, shoe. Yeah, 1 foot at a time.
One that just
No,
seems
why would
seems
you
not,
do
I don't, it seems odd to me.
And
So it seems-
I can't wear shoes without socks.
I mean, I can wear
People
like
that just throw on shoes without socks. I'm like, how do you?
yeah,
do that?
I can't wear tennis shoes or like boots without. But like hey dudes,
Yes.
yeah, like I
can
could
see where-
wear hey dudes. But
But yeah, you put both socks on first, and then you put shoes on.
one thing you're thankful for in 22.
One thing I'm thankful for in 22.
That's this year. In case you were
You
wondering.
know, everybody was dogging me, son. To tell you how busy I've been, I thought we were in 23, and I was projecting out to 24. So there you go. The thing I'm most thankful for in 22.
Well, one thing you're thankful for in 22.
Health. I feel like our family, health in my whole family, not just me, but in our whole family, I feel like this year was a really blessed year that we didn't have. Dylan had some rhabdo issues, but other than that, we've been very blessed. We've had COVID, we've had flu, we've had the stuff that has churned.
Sure.
But within that context, we've been very blessed for all of that to be minor. There's been no cancer, no busted ovaries, no hospital stays, no all of that.
No crazy
Yeah,
hospital
so
visits.
I'm,
Yep.
For me, I would say God's blessed my family with health this year, and my parents are healthy, my family's healthy, just really good. That's
Health.
what I would say.
In 23, I'm looking forward to
Expansion.
expansion.
Yeah, I'm ready to. I feel like 2022. Total transparency was a year to get over 2021.
Sure.
Right, 2021 sucked, and I feel like that 2022 was a year for me personally, even my family to a lot of extents, because a lot of the stupidity in 21 was attacking on my family. But I believe in 2022 it was a year for me to rest and to get my feet back under me and to just kind of breathe a little bit. But 2023 I'm excited about. I'm ready to run. I'm ready to, and so I would say expand. And I mean that within my family, within the ministry, within the church, within Cassie's business, within like all of that. I'm ready to go. I want to get back to the run and gun, high flying offense that and
Sure.
stop listening to everybody else tell me I need to slow it down. I don't do good slow. I buy goats. And chickens.
yeah.
But I am thinking about buying chickens again because the price of eggs is stupid.
Yeah, I don't quite understand how eggs are so expensive, but you know, it's just
Like
one
I
of
thought about boiled eggs would be great for coffee house until it smelled like a wet fart.
the yeah, for sure.
It'd be bad. So I'd like
You could get the nice little egg dish, and you know,
Yeah.
like that's real fancy.
next year deviled eggs.
Mm,
Yeah, see, because you said the most worthless Thanksgiving was deviled eggs.
no, that's not true.
I do think, dude.
I like deviled eggs. If you put too much paprika on deviled eggs, no thanks. But
I will say this: deviled eggs wrapped in panko.
yeah, those were really good. I don't know. That figured out some secret, I guess.
It was. I want to know who the first guy
Yeah.
that was sitting there. Now, excuse me. I get it. I've been in the kitchen and been like, I've got a piece of chicken. What can I
Yep.
do with it? You open your spice cabinet and you look around and you go, oh, let's try this. So I'm in.
Yeah, Claire and I used to do pantry cleanses quite often. You know, as
Yeah.
we'd get to the end of the month or the end of whatever, we'd go, all right, like it's time to clean the pantry, and we ate some interesting things. And you go, and you know, in college, it was always, well, I have orange juice but not milk, and I put orange juice in with my cereal, and you always tried it, and it was never great, but you ate it.
But you ate it anyway.
Yeah, you ate it.
I was, excuse me, we just had that, but it wasn't in the pantry. It was the refrigerator door.
Yep.
When you open your refrigerator door and there's not room to put your new sauce that you bought,
Yep.
you sit there and start looking at the things that are in your refrigerator door, and you go, I've got a jelly jar in there from 2019.
Yep. Time to toss.
Time to toss. We've got bacon grease in the thing in there, which we're saving for somebody, but we've got all that stuff. So Cassie starts digging out. I don't ever need to go to the grocery store when I'm hungry, but I love avocado ranch dressing.
Yeah.
And not that I eat salad a lot, but I like to put on a lot of
Sure.
things. And I will go and I'll see it in the store, and I'm like, oh, I love that. It sounds really good, so I'll buy one. And I'll bring it home and I'll open it and I'll put it on because it's that day, and now I want
Right.
that. And I'll put it in the door by the other 3 avocado ranch things because that's the only time I ate it.
Yep.
When I
Is
saw it.
when you first see it.
So for me, it's cleaning out that refrigerator door.
Yep.
Of stuff, but they the panko or the Cheetos wrapped deep fried deviled egg.
Those were good.
They were really.
They were really good.
I was pretty impressed with that.
Yes, I was pleasantly surprised. Like I was excited about that. You know, growing up in Texas, we grew up right near the state fair. So I went to the state fair of Texas every year, and their big thing is, you know, they have a fried competition, and so we
Deep
tried
fry
all
everything.
deep fried everything. You know, started with Oreos. You get deep fried Coke. You get like Coca-Cola, not cocaine, but yeah, all those things. It was interesting, and it was always delicious, and I was impressed with fried deviled eggs.
I've got a segue.
Okay.
Last 3 minutes. I really believe God spoke to me last night.
Okay.
And talking about food, that's why it's a segue. So I got home from church, and the women's group had an amazing buffet spread of. I like potlucks. I'm not the guy that goes, oh, I wonder what their kitchen's like, or oh, I wonder what. I've worked in restaurants.
Sure.
If you walk in the kitchen of any restaurant, you
Sure.
stop eating there. But so I don't care. And when you eat food in the desert and it crunches everything, or MREs, you kind of go, oh. But last night I'm looking, and they got Chick-fil-A chicken nuggets, which is from God, and then I'm looking at the smorgasbord buffet, and I'm like, maybe I can sneak me a plate. But my wife came in like, you know, and I said, I identify as a chicken eater tonight, and she still would not let me. So she wouldn't bring me a plate home either, which they didn't get out of there till late, and it was way past my bedtime. So
Oh, for sure.
I'm a leftover guy. I like leftovers, so I opened the fridge, and we just cleaned out our fridge. Talking about the door, so we cleaned everything out, so there wasn't really anything. And I'd eaten ramen for lunch,
Yep.
which I like ramen. So I'm like, man. And I texted her and I said, there's nothing to eat, which is not true. There's
Right.
a ton of stuff to eat. Right.
It's what you would tell your mom when you went at McDonald's.
Yeah, exactly. There's nothing to eat
Yeah.
at the house.
Yeah.
Well, so I grabbed 2 cans of ravioli. And I found some chips in the cupboard, and I crunched them up, and I put it in my ravioli. And I put the ravioli in the microwave for 2 minutes, which I thought, that's enough. Pulled it out, sat down, took my first bite. It's not hot.
But it's not cold.
It's
It's lukewarm.
Right? Almost like out of the can. But a little warmer than out of the can, but not cold. Right? And I'm sitting there, and that's when I thought, you know, I'm sitting here eating ravioli. When was the last time you opened up a can of ravioli and ate it?
A can? It's been a while, but I did make some.
No, I'm not talking about homemade. I'm talking about
well,
you popped the top of a.
Well, this was like
SpaghettiOs.
frozen ravioli that we
I'm
made
talking
just the
about
other
that.
day.
That's
But
too
yeah, no.
bougie.
Oh well, it was like shrimp and crab ravioli. It was all right.
Oh my gosh, that's like.
It was not bad.
$5
Like
ravioli.
it was Aldi, but it was on clearance. That's
Oh.
why I bought it.
So whether
I like seafood.
whether it's ravioli or whether it's SpaghettiOs or beanie weenies, Chef Boyardee
Yeah.
in a can,
Mhm.
pop the top.
Mhm.
When was the last time you ate something?
Do you count sardines?
No, that's not a
Oh.
food.
Well, then it's been a while.
Okay.
But I like like I pop the top. That's often a lunch for me is sardines and crackers.
That's disgusting.
You just don't.
But, okay,
Gotta
I
get
get it.
look. You gotta get King Oscar. Don't get any other sardines. But
Dude, I'm
you
a
know.
Vienna sausage guy.
Sure.
So, but here's the deal. Sitting there and I'm eating that, and I thought, I just said there was nothing to eat in the house. I popped this can of ravioli. It's lukewarm at best. It's got some saltines in it. And I'm like, God spoke to me and says, it's about perspective. Because I'm sitting here at a stage in my life where I'm like, why am I a grown butt man sitting here popping a can of ravioli? I mean, I could cook, I could do
Sure.
all these other things. I'm just too lazy, and I popped this can of ravioli. And I'm kind of whining to myself about it. I'm like, my wife won't even bring me a plate home, and I got to eat this ravioli. And I think that's when God spoke to me and said, you know what, there was a day, 3 different times in my life, have been ravioli moments. First time I was in the military, and ravioli in the military, not having to eat it anymore, like that was the hot meal.
Yeah.
Because you could warm it up over your little campfire and do that was great. It was like, ravioli at that point was almost like a taste of home.
Sure.
And there was just like, oh, this is really good. The same ravioli out of the same Chef Boyardee can was a treat.
Right.
At one point. Then there was another time when I was homeless where ravioli would have been the best meal I had.
Sure.
Like I'm stealing ketchup packets and loaf of bread just to make a ketchup sandwich. To get a can of ravioli would have been like,
Woo.
and then to get it heated up,
Oh yeah.
oh, bro, that would have been the best meal I'd had. And I'm sitting here whining about this ravioli, and I had a God moment. God told me, shut up. It's about perspective. I just found that nobody else will think that's cool, but I'm like, 3 times in my life, the ravioli looked 3 different ways. Same can, 3 different ways.
I feel like it's a future sermon. Ravioli moments.
Ravioli moments. So the next 2 sermons are going to be ravioli moments, and what was the other one I said that's a sermon about? See, I've already forgot.
Yeah, I don't.
I'm going to have to go back and watch.
We're gonna have to watch.
I think it was a brilliant idea.
It probably was.
All right, we got to go.
It is. Hey, big shout out to the women's team for having a great event. Still don't quite understand what y'all did, but
Dirty Santa with Christmas on it.
yeah, I don't get it, but
They had good food. Almost
Yeah.
100 ladies
Yep.
in there. I mean, it was a phenomenal event.
had a blast.
Shout out to them.
Yeah, they seem to have a blast, and as with women, everything runs long. So and they did.
They
They did.
She got home late. But I will say this: Christmas Coffee House this Sunday. We still got a few
This Sunday,
tables, and even if we didn't, we'll make some tables.
absolutely.
And so, if you haven't got your tickets, or you just want to come check us out at the Word Community Church, feel free. And it's probably not your mama's church, but we'll try not to screw it up.
We'll try not to.
All right. See you next week, Wednesday, 10 o'clock.